The dinner at Dorothy Patterson's house, a 64-year-old woman, was unfolding as usual. The house, bought with the life insurance money from her late husband, stood as a monument to the years of hard work she had put in. Dorothy had lived there for 5 years after her husband's passing. She lived with her only son, Michael, and his wife, Jennifer, who always felt like a bit of a stranger in the house, though Dorothy never voiced it. Michael, a good-hearted man, never realized what was happening behind closed doors. Though she was getting older, Dorothy still carried herself with the poise and wisdom of someone who had spent her career in finance. Tonight, like all the other nights, was supposed to be peaceful. Little did they know, a storm was coming. Dinner had nearly concluded when Jennifer, her daughter-in-law, couldn't resist making her usual jab. She tapped her fork against her wine glass, drawing everyone's attention as if it was her moment to shine. The room went quiet, all eyes on her. "Everyone," Jennifer began, her voice sweet yet dripping with sarcasm, "let's raise a toast to my dear mother-in-law, Dorothy, who just shared the wonderful news that she's unemployed again after quitting her job for health reasons." The silence that followed was thick, almost suffocating. Michael, sitting at the table, looked away, unable to meet his mother's eyes. His colleagues and their wives nervously pretended to focus on their plates. Jennifer didn't stop there. "How does it feel being such a total failure at your age?" she added, her smile sharp as a blade. The entire table held its breath. Jennifer's words hung in the air like a bad smell, a taunt meant to embarrass the woman who had given her a roof over her head. Dorothy, however, remained perfectly composed. She slowly set her wine glass down, her hand steady as if performing surgery. "Jennifer," she said, her voice calm, unshaken, "I imagine it feels a lot like learning that you'll be evicted from the house you've been living in for the last 3 years. Jennifer's face froze, her smug expression quickly replaced by confusion. "What are you talking about?" she stammered. Dorothy continued, her tone even. "That house you've been redecorating, the one you've been so proud of on social media, it's not Michael's, it's mine. I bought it outright in cash, from your father-in-law's life insurance." Jennifer's mouth hung open. She glanced at Michael, who was still staring at his plate. The room had gone dead silent, every eye now on her. "You're lying," Jennifer shot back, her voice tinged with panic. Dorothy didn't flinch. "No, dear, I'm not lying. You see, I bought this house because Michael couldn't qualify for a mortgage thanks to his student loan debt. The house has always been mine. Your names were never on the deed." Michael dropped his fork with a clatter, eyes wide, now fully aware of what was happening. "Mom, what? Why didn't you tell me?" Dorothy looked at her son, her expression soft but resolute. "I didn't want to make you weak, Michael. I wanted you to stand on your own 2 feet, to have your dignity. Your father and I always said we would help you, but never in a way that would leave you feeling helpless." Jennifer, seething but trying to regain control, scoffed. "You can't just throw us out." Dorothy stood up slowly, smoothing her navy dress. "Actually, I can. This is my house, and I'm choosing not to renew your lease. You have 30 days to find another place to live. I suggest you start looking now, Jennifer. The rental market is brutal at this time of year." The rest of the table sat in stunned silence. Michael's colleagues, who had been pretending to ignore the tension, now couldn't look away. The air was thick with the weight of the truth that had just been exposed. Without another word, Dorothy gathered her purse and shawl and walked out of the dining room, leaving behind a speechless Jennifer and a confused, rattled Michael. The battle had begun. The next morning, Dorothy sat in her sunroom with a cup of coffee, the morning light streaming in as she read the newspaper. She knew it was only a matter of time before the phone call came. She had already prepared herself for the inevitable, but even so, she remained calm, letting the quiet of the morning settle around her. Sure enough, at 7:15, the phone rang. Dorothy picked it up without hesitation. "Mom," Michael's voice cracked over the line. What the hell happened last night? Dorothy took a slow sip of her coffee before responding. Language, Michael, and I think you know exactly what happened. I don't. He paused, running a hand through his hair. What are you talking about? Dorothy leaned back in her chair, the light falling on her as if she was already in control. Jennifer humiliated me in front of a room full of people, so I reminded her of her place. You can't kick me out of my own home. There was a long silence on the other end. Michael's voice came back, almost a whisper. It's not our home, is it? No, Michael, Dorothy said gently but firmly. It's not your home, it never was. She paused, letting that sink in before continuing. Do you remember when you and Jennifer were looking for houses a few years ago? You were so excited about that little place on Maple Street, but the bank wouldn't approve the mortgage because of your student loan debt. Michael was quiet, the memory clearly hitting him. Yeah, he said, his voice low. You offered to help, but you said you didn't want to co-sign. Dorothy nodded, even though he couldn't see her. What you didn't know, Michael, is that I didn't co-sign anything. I bought this house outright for $420,000 using your father's life insurance money. The mortgage payments you've been making for the last 3 years. They've been rent, Michael. You've been paying me rent for the privilege of living in my house. Another long pause, and then Michael's voice, now a mix of disbelief and anger. Wait, so this whole time we've been renting from you? Yes, Dorothy said, her tone unwavering. Every month for 3 years, you've been paying me rent, not a bank, and I kept it in my name because I wanted to protect my investment. Michael's voice was barely audible as he tried to process what she was telling him. Why didn't you tell us, Mom? Because I wanted you to stand on your own 2 feet, Michael, Dorothy said softly. I wanted you to have dignity, to feel like you'd earned something. Your father and I always said we'd help, but never in a way that would make you feel helpless. But we're family, Michael protested, his tone rising. This is our home too. No, Dorothy replied, the finality in her words cutting through his protests. This house has always been mine. Michael and Jennifer's behavior last night, insulting me, mocking me, has made it clear that she doesn't deserve to be here. So you have 30 days to pack your things and find somewhere else to live. Michael was quiet for a long time, digesting her words until he finally spoke again, his voice strained. I didn't know any of this. Dorothy's voice softened slightly. I know you didn't, but now you do, and you need to understand that respect, real respect, is something you earn, Michael. It's not something you can demand just because you share blood with someone. He didn't reply right away. Dorothy could hear him trying to piece together everything she'd just dropped on him. Jennifer says you're being vindictive, Michael finally said, his voice defensive. Jennifer says a lot of things. Dorothy shot back, her sarcasm evident. Most of them are as meaningful as her yoga certifications. There was silence on the other end of the line. Michael was trying to process everything Dorothy had said, but the pieces weren't falling into place yet. She's my wife, Mom, Michael said finally, his voice smaller now, almost pleading. Yes, Dorothy replied. And I'm your mother, but this isn't about choosing sides. This is about respect. It's about what's right and what's wrong. And what Jennifer did last night, humiliating me in front of everyone, was wrong. The silence stretched between them, and Dorothy could almost hear Michael's internal struggle. After a long moment, he spoke again, quieter this time. What do you want me to do? Mom. Dorothy's response was calm, but it carried the weight of a lifetime of experience. I want you to find your own place. I want you to get qualified for your own mortgage. I want you to build your own life, Michael, without relying on me to bail you out. And if you and Jennifer can't make it work, then you'll figure it out on your own. Dorothy paused, giving him time to absorb it all. I love you, Michael, but I won't be treated like a doormat in my own house. Not by Jennifer. Not by anyone. There was a long pause, and Dorothy could tell that Michael was no longer just shocked. He was starting to realize the truth. Finally, in a voice that was much smaller than usual, Michael said, "I get it, Mom." "Good," Dorothy said, standing up slowly. "Because you have 30 days, make it count." The phone call ended with the soft click of the receiver. Dorothy looked out the window, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over her. The storm was just beginning, but for once she felt ready. The next afternoon, Dorothy sat in her living room, sipping tea as she glanced through the financial documents she'd gathered. She wasn't expecting any surprises today, but she knew Jennifer wasn't going to let things go without a fight. And sure enough, at exactly 2:00 p.m., the doorbell rang. Dorothy opened the door to find Jennifer standing there, dressed in sleek designer athleisure, holding a small bouquet of flowers, clearly a peace offering. Her smile was tight, almost forced, but there was a hint of desperation in her eyes. "Dorothy, we need to talk," Jennifer said, pushing past her without waiting for an invitation. She walked into the foyer, setting the flowers on the entry table. Dorothy closed the door behind her, a calm smile on her face. "By all means, make yourself comfortable in my house." Jennifer's confident swagger faltered slightly as she turned around to face her mother-in-law. "I want to apologize for last night. I was out of line," Jennifer began, though the words didn't come as easily as she probably expected. "Oh, you were," Dorothy replied coolly, walking past Jennifer toward the kitchen. "But I understand. Stress, right? It's been a rough year with the yoga studio and all that." Dorothy's tone was thick with sarcasm, though she kept it light enough to be palatable. Jennifer shifted uncomfortably, clearly not prepared for this kind of response. "You have no idea what it's like to struggle. My business isn't doing well. I'm under a lot of pressure," she said, almost pleading. Dorothy didn't flinch. "Your yoga studio that's been open for 2 years, right? And still no paying clients." She raised an eyebrow, pausing as if considering Jennifer's words. Interesting. Jennifer's composure cracked just slightly. "It takes time to build a client base," she stammered. "It's just slow right now." "I see," Dorothy said, her voice as smooth as ever. "Tell me, Jennifer, how much have you and Michael invested in this business of yours? A ballpark figure will do." Jennifer hesitated, clearly not expecting to be questioned so directly. "Maybe $15,000 for equipment, marketing, insurance." 15,000, Dorothy repeated slowly, nodding as she walked into the kitchen. "And yet, somehow, you've been living in a $420,000 house without paying a single dollar of rent for the last 3 years. Very interesting." She set her tea down, glancing at Jennifer, who now looked like she might break into a cold sweat. Jennifer shifted her weight from foot to foot, her confidence slipping away. I don't see how this is relevant," she said, trying to deflect. "Oh, it's relevant," Dorothy said, taking a seat across from her. "Because it seems you've been using Michael's paycheck, the one he gets as a teacher, to cover your expenses. And yet you've never reported a single cent from your business." Jennifer's face paled. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her shaking hands betrayed her. "Oh, I think you do," Dorothy continued, her eyes sharp. "See, I used to work for the IRS, Jennifer. I specialized in tracking down fraudulent business expenses and unreported income." She leaned forward, her voice taking on a more ominous tone. "You've been teaching private yoga lessons to wealthy women in their homes, haven't you? And you've been paid in cash off the books. I'm guessing that's how you've been able to afford that lifestyle while pretending to run a failed business." Jennifer's eyes widened as Dorothy's words sank in. She took a step back, her composure fully shattered. "You can't prove anything," she muttered, though there was no conviction in her voice. "Can't I?" Dorothy smiled sweetly. "Your phone has GPS tracking, Jennifer. Your car has GPS tracking. And I've seen the posts your clients share on social media, tagging you, mentioning how much they love their private instructor, talking about how much they paid you. Dorothy paused, savoring the moment. I'm sure the IRS would love to see those posts. Jennifer's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, scrambling for words. You're bluffing, she finally said, her voice breaking. No, Jennifer, Dorothy said with chilling calmness. I'm not bluffing, and if you think for 1 second that I won't report you to the IRS, then you don't know me very well. Dorothy stood up, walking past Jennifer toward the door. Here's what I want you to understand. I'm not some helpless old woman you can walk all over. I won't let you use me or my family for your schemes. If you ever try to humiliate me again the way you did last night, I won't just kick you out of my house. I'll make sure the IRS takes a very close look at your little business. Jennifer's face had gone completely white now, and she stumbled back toward the door. You wouldn't do that. Oh, I would, Dorothy said, her voice unwavering. And trust me, I've got the evidence to back it up. Jennifer opened her mouth to protest, but no words came out. She turned and fled, leaving Dorothy standing in the middle of the room, her heart beating steadily in her chest. The storm was only just beginning, but Dorothy knew she had everything under control. Later that evening, Michael arrived home. Dorothy knew what was coming next. He walked in, his shoulders slumped, looking exhausted, as if the weight of the world had been placed on him. Mom, Michael began, Jennifer told me what happened today. His voice was low, strained. She says you're threatening to report her to the IRS over a few yoga lessons. Dorothy didn't skip a beat. A few yoga lessons that generate unreported income, Michael. It's tax evasion, and you know it. Michael stared at her, his jaw tightening as the truth finally hit him. You didn't tell me any of this. I had no idea. Well, now you do, Dorothy replied softly, her voice filled with a sad, resigned wisdom. And now you have a choice to make. You can decide if you want to live in a house where someone is lying to you every day, or you can start seeing your wife for who she really is. Michael stood in the doorway, staring at his mother, the weight of her words sinking in. Dorothy knew the moment had come. He could no longer pretend everything was fine. She's my wife, Michael said quietly, but there was doubt in his voice now, as if he was already questioning everything he thought he knew. I know, Dorothy said gently, and you're my son, but that doesn't mean I'll let her destroy this family. The silence that followed was thick. Dorothy had already made her decision. Now it was Michael's turn to decide where his loyalty truly lay. The following morning, Michael sat across from Dorothy at the kitchen table. He had barely slept the night before, his mind racing through the revelations of the past 24 hours. Jennifer's lies, her business dealings, the affair, everything he had once believed about his wife now felt like a carefully crafted illusion. And in the center of it all was his mother, Dorothy, the one person who had been right all along. Mom, Michael began, his voice low, almost apologetic. I didn't know. I had no idea what was really going on. Dorothy, calm as always, looked at her son, her eyes soft but firm. I know, sweetheart. You've always wanted to believe the best in Jennifer, but sometimes people show you who they really are. And Jennifer, she's shown us exactly who she is. Michael ran his hands through his hair, frustration mounting. I never thought it would come to this. I never thought. I know, Dorothy interrupted gently. But now it's about what comes next. You can't keep ignoring the truth, Michael. Not for her and certainly not for yourself. I'm not ignoring it anymore, he said, looking up at his mother with a mix of exhaustion and clarity. But I don't know what to do. She's my wife. I took vows, Mom. His voice cracked slightly, revealing the conflict that tore at him. Dorothy exhaled, standing up to refill her coffee. She moved with quiet authority, as if every decision she made carried weight. I know how hard this is, but you have to ask yourself, do you want to keep living a lie? Do you want to stay in a marriage built on deceit? You've spent 3 years in that house with someone who has no respect for you, for your family, or for anything real. Michael's eyes dropped to the table, the weight of the question sinking in. I don't know. I love her, Mom. I want to believe in us. Dorothy placed a cup of coffee in front of him and sat back down. Her gaze was steady, unwavering. Sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes love has to be about self-respect. You've given Jennifer chances. You've overlooked things for her, but she's been lying to you. She's been using you. He met his mother's gaze, his voice strained. But what about everything? What about the time we've spent together? What about? It doesn't matter, Michael. What matters is who she really is and what she's been doing. You deserve more than this. You deserve honesty, loyalty, and respect. And right now, Jennifer has shown you none of that. Michael closed his eyes, rubbing his temples as if trying to clear the fog in his mind. Dorothy could see the mental battle playing out in him. He loved Jennifer, but that love was based on a version of her that wasn't real. I've been such a fool, Michael muttered. No, sweetheart, Dorothy said softly. You're not a fool. You're a good man, and good men sometimes get deceived by people they trust. But now it's time to make a decision. You need to protect yourself. You need to protect your future. There was a long silence between them. Finally, Michael looked up at his mother with a new resolve in his eyes. I can't keep living like this. I can't keep pretending everything's okay when I know it's not. He swallowed hard, the words coming out with difficulty. I'll talk to her, Mom. I'll do what needs to be done. Dorothy nodded, offering him a small, understanding smile. You're making the right choice, and no matter what happens, you're not alone. You have me, and you always will. That afternoon, Michael sat across from Jennifer in their living room. Her attempt at making peace had come and gone, and now it was time to face the truth. Jennifer sat on the couch, her usual air of arrogance replaced by a sense of unease. She was no longer the confident woman who had walked into the house yesterday, flowers in hand, ready to apologize. Now she was tense, on the defensive. Michael, what's going on? She asked, her voice shaking. I don't understand why you're doing this. I said I was sorry. We can fix this. He shook his head, his jaw tight. No, Jennifer, we can't fix this, not after everything that's happened. Her face faltered, the smugness from earlier slipping away. What do you mean? She stood, pacing, clearly agitated. You can't just throw us away like this, Michael. I've made mistakes, okay, but I love you. We're a team. We can work through this. Love, Michael said bitterly. You don't love me. You've been lying to me this entire time. About the business, about the money, about the affair. You've been using me, Jennifer. You've been using this family, and I won't let you keep doing it. Jennifer stopped pacing, her eyes wide with shock. What are you talking about? What do you mean the affair? What about Marcus? Michael's expression hardened. I know everything, Jennifer. About the yoga business, about Marcus, about everything. You've been hiding money from me, hiding the truth. You've been running a scheme to take everything you could from me. She opened her mouth to protest, but no words came. Michael continued, his voice rising. I've seen the receipts, Jennifer. I know what you've been doing. You've been teaching private lessons, charging people cash, and never reporting it. And you think I didn't know? You think I couldn't put the pieces together? She looked at him, horrified, the color draining from her face. Michael, please, you don't understand. It's not like that. I never meant for any of this to happen. I was just trying to build something. For us. For us. Michael laughed bitterly. You were building it for yourself, using me as your safety net while you lied and cheated your way through everything. I'm done, Jennifer. This marriage is over. The finality in his voice made her stagger back, her eyes wide with panic. No, Michael, don't do this. I love you. I can fix this. Just give me a chance. Michael shook his head, his heart heavy but resolute. It's too late. You've already destroyed everything. There's no fixing this. I'm done. Jennifer stood frozen, tears welling in her eyes, but it was too late. Michael had made his choice, and he walked out of the house, leaving behind the woman who had once been his wife, but who was now a stranger to him. The house that had once been a home now felt like a prison. Meanwhile, Dorothy sat in the kitchen, watching the events unfold from the window. She knew it wasn't going to be easy for Michael, but she also knew he was strong enough to do the right thing. The storm had come, but Dorothy had weathered it long ago. Now she was here for her son, and no matter what happened next, she would make sure he would be okay. The days following Michael's decision were tense, filled with quiet moments of reflection. Dorothy could sense that her son was still struggling with the aftermath of everything that had happened. He had made his choice, but it was clear the weight of it was heavy on him. Jennifer had moved out by the end of the week, but the emotional damage lingered. Michael spent his days sorting through the wreckage of his marriage and his life, trying to come to terms with the betrayal. One afternoon, just as Dorothy was finishing her tea in the kitchen, the doorbell rang. She knew it was too soon for a visit from Michael. When she opened the door, she wasn't surprised to see Jennifer standing there, looking disheveled and desperate. She had returned, no flowers this time, just a defeated look on her face. "Dorothy, please," Jennifer began, her voice trembling. "I need to talk to you. Can we please just talk?" Dorothy studied her for a moment. Jennifer's appearance was telling. Her eyes were red, her makeup smudged. She looked like someone who had lost everything and didn't know where to turn. "What do you want, Jennifer?" Dorothy asked, her tone firm but not unkind. "I thought we were done." Jennifer stepped forward, her eyes pleading. "I messed up. I know I did, but I didn't think it would all come crashing down like this. I'm not asking for anything from you. I just need to explain. I need you to understand." Dorothy raised an eyebrow. "Understand what exactly?" Jennifer took a shaky breath, her hands clenched into fists by her sides. "I've been under a lot of stress. I was trying to make something of myself, trying to prove I could succeed on my own. I didn't want to rely on Michael. And Marcus, he was always there for me. I made bad choices, but I never meant to hurt anyone. I never meant to destroy everything." Dorothy crossed her arms. "But you did, Jennifer. You hurt Michael. You hurt this family. You built your life on lies and deceit. And now you think you can come here and ask for sympathy after everything you've done." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears, but her voice was resolute. "I don't expect sympathy. I just need you to see that I wasn't trying to ruin everything. I love Michael, I do, but I've always felt like I was just a failure. I thought this was the only way to prove I could do something right." Dorothy's gaze softened for a moment, but she remained firm. "You had a chance to prove something, Jennifer. You had a chance to earn Michael's trust, and instead you chose to lie to him, to cheat, to manipulate him. You chose to tear this family apart." Jennifer's shoulders slumped, and she looked away, unable to meet Dorothy's eyes. "I know," she whispered. "I'm sorry, but can't you see? I was trying to survive. I was trying to build something, anything, that would make me feel like I was worth something." Dorothy took a step forward, her voice low but filled with strength. "I've spent my whole life building something, Jennifer. And I've learned the hard way that you can't build anything on a foundation of lies. You can't survive by tearing others down to lift yourself up. That's not how the world works. And if you truly loved Michael, you would have never done what you did to him." Jennifer's face crumpled, and she sank to her knees on the floor. "Please, Dorothy, I never meant for it to be like this. I never wanted to destroy everything. Please don't do this to me." Dorothy stood tall, looking down at her. "You've already done it to yourself. This is the consequence of your actions. Michael's already made his choice, and so have I." Jennifer raised her head, her eyes filled with desperation. "You're not going to help me. You're just going to let me lose everything." Dorothy shook her head. "I'm not the one who put you in this position. Jennifer, you did that all by yourself. You've burned every bridge you've built. I can't fix that for you." For a moment, there was silence. The weight of what was happening, of what had already happened, hung heavily in the room. Finally, Jennifer stood up, her expression one of defeat. "I guess this is it then. There's no coming back from this. I lost everything." Dorothy's voice softened, but the truth was clear. "You didn't lose everything, Jennifer. You lost what you were never meant to have, and now you'll have to live with that." With one last look, Jennifer turned and walked out of the house, her head hung low. Dorothy watched her go, the door clicking softly behind her. Later that evening, Michael came over, his face strained but calm. Dorothy had known he would come. She could see it in the way he held himself. He was struggling, but he was still standing. He hadn't broken. "How did it go?" Dorothy asked, sitting at the kitchen table with him. Michael sank into the chair across from her, rubbing his face. "I told her it was over. I told her I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't keep pretending." Dorothy nodded, a quiet understanding passing between them. "And how do you feel about it, Michael?" He took a deep breath, letting it out slowly. "Relieved, but I feel guilty, like I should have seen it sooner. Maybe I should have done something differently." Dorothy leaned forward, her eyes gentle but firm. "You did the right thing, Michael. You can't save people who don't want to save themselves. Jennifer made her choices, and you..." She paused, her voice softening. "You've always been a good son, Michael. You don't owe her anything." He looked up at her, the tears he had been holding back finally spilling over. "I don't know what to do next, Mom. I feel like I've lost so much." Dorothy reached across the table, placing a hand on his. "You've lost what wasn't real, Michael. What you have now is your chance to rebuild, to live your life the way you want to, and I'll be here every step of the way." For the first time in days, Michael smiled, a small, fragile smile, but it was a start. Dorothy squeezed his hand, a silent promise between them. The road ahead was uncertain, but at least now they would walk it together. The storm had passed, but the rebuilding had only just begun. Dorothy knew that, no matter what happened next, Michael would be okay, because sometimes the hardest thing to do was to let go. And she had already made that choice for herself. Now it was his turn. Days passed in a strange sort of quiet, a lull after the storm. Michael, though still deeply hurt, was slowly finding his footing. He began making small decisions, arranging to stay in a new apartment, sorting through his finances, reclaiming pieces of his life that had been overshadowed by Jennifer's lies. Every now and then, he'd visit Dorothy, seeking her advice, her comfort. She never once wavered in her support. She knew that this was Michael's journey, and all she could do was stand by him, quietly watching him rebuild. One afternoon, just as Dorothy was about to head out to the garden, her phone rang. She knew who it was even before she saw the name on the screen. It was Detective Rachel Morrison from the county sheriff's office. Dorothy had been expecting this call, but she still couldn't help the flutter of anticipation that ran through her. "Mrs. Patterson." Detective Morrison's voice was calm, professional. "I have some news for you." Dorothy walked to the window, looking out at the garden where she had spent countless hours of her life, tending to the roses that had always been her refuge. "Go ahead, Detective. I'm listening." "We've been able to build a solid case against Jennifer Caldwell and Marcus Davidson," a Detective Morrison continued. "Based on the evidence you provided, along with the additional records we've uncovered, we're moving forward with charges for tax fraud, bigamy, and multiple counts of financial fraud. They've been under investigation for months, but your testimony and documents have been instrumental in bringing this to light." Dorothy nodded, though no one could see her. "I knew she wasn't who she claimed to be. I just didn't realize the depth of it all. Thank you, Detective. I've always said the truth eventually comes to light." "It certainly has," Morrison replied. "We're also pursuing charges for mail fraud and wire fraud. We've been able to trace several of Marcus's property transfers, and we've confirmed that Jennifer was directly involved. She's been siphoning off money from multiple families, not just yours." Dorothy paused, letting the gravity of the situation settle in. The truth was finally being exposed. Jennifer's web of lies was unraveling, piece by piece, and it wasn't just Dorothy's family that had been caught in it. "I never imagined it would go this far," Dorothy said quietly, more to herself than to the detective. She didn't just betray Michael, she betrayed everyone who ever trusted her. "I understand," Detective Morrison replied sympathetically. But it's important to remember that what she's done is criminal, and now we have the evidence to make sure she faces the consequences. Dorothy's voice was firm, resolute. I won't let her destroy any more lives. I'll make sure of that. The next morning, Dorothy met with Michael, who had been anxiously waiting for news about the investigation. When she told him what had transpired, his face went pale, his eyes wide with disbelief. "She's going to prison?" he asked, his voice shaky. "After everything she's done." Dorothy nodded, a sad smile on her lips. "Yes, Michael, the truth will catch up with her eventually. It's only a matter of time now." Michael sat back, his hands trembling as he processed the weight of it all. "I thought I could fix things. I thought I could save her. But now I see what she really was. I was blinded by love." Dorothy reached out, placing her hand on his. "It's not your fault, Michael. You loved her, and you did what you thought was right. But sometimes, the people we love are the ones who hurt us the most. And now, you have to focus on healing, on moving forward." "I don't know where to begin," Michael said, his voice hoarse. "This whole thing feels like a nightmare." "It's over now," Dorothy said softly. "And you don't have to go through it alone. You have a fresh start, Michael. You have a chance to rebuild your life the right way, free from the lies and the manipulation." As the weeks went by, the wheels of justice slowly turned. Jennifer's trial date was set, and she faced serious federal charges. The weight of her actions was finally catching up with her. She had manipulated people, used them for her own gain, and now she was paying the price. When the day came for her sentencing, Dorothy and Michael sat together in the courtroom, the final chapter of their painful journey about to unfold. The prosecutor, Amanda Chen, stood before the judge, her voice steady as she outlined the extent of Jennifer's crimes. The defendant, Jennifer Caldwell, operated a sophisticated marriage fraud scheme, targeting widowed women and their families across multiple states. She manipulated and deceived every single person who trusted her. Jennifer sat in the defendant's chair, her once pristine designer clothes replaced with the orange jumpsuit of a convicted criminal. The smug confidence she had once radiated was gone, replaced by a hollow, defeated look. As Amanda Chen listed the charges, tax evasion, bigamy, fraud, Dorothy couldn't help but think of all the lives Jennifer had destroyed in her quest for wealth and power. "Your Honor," Amanda continued, "Jennifer Caldwell's actions have caused irreparable harm to countless families. She targeted those who were vulnerable, manipulated their trust, and left a trail of devastation in her wake. The Patterson family was her most recent victim, but they were far from the first." The courtroom was silent as the prosecutor laid out the full scope of Jennifer's scheme, how she had married multiple men at once, how she had siphoned money from them, how she had manipulated her way into every family she entered. When Jennifer's sentencing came, the judge's voice was firm. "The defendant, Jennifer Caldwell, is hereby sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for her role in these crimes. The court recognizes the severity of her actions, and the sentence is appropriate." As Jennifer was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, her eyes met Dorothy's for a brief moment. There was no apology, no remorse, just cold indifference. Dorothy didn't flinch. She didn't need to say anything. Jennifer had already shown her true colors, and now the world would know exactly what kind of person she was. Later that day, Michael and Dorothy stood in the hallway outside the courtroom, the weight of the verdict settling in. Michael looked at his mother, his eyes filled with gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you, Mom, for everything," he said, his voice full of emotion. "You don't have to thank me, Michael," Dorothy said with a soft smile. "I've always had your back, and I always will." The silence between them was comfortable now, filled with the quiet knowledge that they had made it through the storm. The journey had been painful, but they had both come out stronger on the other side. And though there was much to rebuild, one thing was certain. Michael had his mother's unwavering support, and that was all he needed to start over. As they walked out of the courthouse together, Dorothy placed a hand on Michael's shoulder. "Now, let's move forward. You've got a life to build, and I'll be right here beside you every step of the way." And for the first time in a long while, Michael felt a glimmer of hope. The past had been painful, but the future was his to shape. And with his mother by his side, he knew he could rebuild the life he deserved.